Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Greenery S virtual farm tour. We're very excited to have you with us today. I am Emma. I'm a senior account executive here at Freight Farms, and I'll be leading the Q&A session at the end of the tour, but I'll pass it over to Vanessa to introduce herself, as she'll actually be leading the tour for you all today.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. Welcome, everyone. I am Vanessa Igo, and I am a customer success specialist here at Freight Farms. And I will be conducting the virtual tour. It will be split into two parts today. We'll do a general overview of our greenery as Freight Farm, get into a little more in depth into just like hydroponics in general, how the different areas of the farm work together to create a full life cycle for the plant, the crops that you're going to grow. And then the second half will be diving into site preparation and zoning, which is my personal favorite topic. You may be wondering why I'm the specific individual in charge of running this tour today, going over site prep and zoning. And just wanted to delve a little bit into my role here at Freight Farms. So if you all do decide to purchase a freight farm with us, the process, how it works pretty much goes as this. Once you do sign a contract with one of our account executives, such as Emma, for example, and you submit your first deposit for one of our farms, you will actually be paired up with myself or another colleague of mine on the customer success team. And we will be your right-hand person to help you reach your goals, to get your site ready for delivery of your farm. We'll be your right-hand person all the way up to your first harvest, making you feel confident and comfortable enough to get there on your own. So I am very excited to chat with you all today, and I hope you come out of it with a lot more knowledge than when you started about us. So here we go. Let's begin. Thank you all for joining. So first half of the tour, like I said, just wanted to introduce you all to the Greenery S farm. Here we go. Let's take a little walk. Woohoo! Look at all that lettuce, freshly seeded. Freshly transplanted, I should say. So this is our flagship farm here at Freight Farms. So many farms, only one sentence. It's hard to keep up with. The Greenery S is an atmospherically controlled, tech-connected hydroponic farm built in just a 40-foot shipping container. Believe it or not, it's pretty cool if I do say so myself. This just means in 320 square feet, we're able to grow the equivalent of 2.5 acres of produce, which we would typically grow in traditional agriculture, traditional farming. Not only that, we're able to grow hundreds of different varieties of crops as well, all in this vicinity of where it will eventually be consumed by your consumers, by your community, by members of your organization. On a larger scale, this ties into our goal here at Freight Farms, right? The end all be all. This allows us to drastically shorten the food supply chain we currently have in the United States and make fresh produce available hyper-locally to any community around the globe, no matter where you are, no matter what weather you're experiencing on a given day. But I hope that gives you a general overview of where I am now, and it will even get more in depth into the specific parts of it. And before we get into those specifics of like exactly how this thing works, I just want to make sure we cover the basics of what hydroponics actually is. So I hope we're all hydroponic experts here today. Can anyone tell me what hydroponics is? Is anyone familiar with the term even? Let's start there. Feel free to write in that chat. I'm looking forward to see answers roll through. I'll give you all a minute or two. What is hydroponics? Amy, great job. You're an expert. Perfect, perfect, perfect. I love all these answers. Great. Yeah. Okay, you're all experts. My job here is done. Bye. Okay, exactly right. Great job, everyone, for that participation. Exactly. So hydroponics is just a fancy way of saying soilless farming when it comes down to it, right? If we want to break that word hydroponics down even more, we'll find two Greek roots which translate into water and work. So basically in hydroponics, we can say we're allowing water to do the work for us, or most of the work, I should say. It's still farming at the end of the day. So I'm sure a lot of you know, in conventional growing systems, plants get all their nutrients from water. So when plants absorb water through that soil, minerals in that soil have to actually dissolve in that water. And then the plants have to absorb the nutrients as they suck up that water. It's pretty time consuming for them. Whereas in hydroponic growing systems, like our Greenery S and our other Freight Farms, for example, we actually dissolve those nutrients directly into the plant's water supply. This means that the nutrients for the plants are already in their most absorbable form. And this makes the nutrient uptake process a whole lot more efficient for our plants. And at the end of the day, that's what we're in charge of taking care of, our baby crops, right? Awesome. So to delve into hydroponics and a general overview of our growing system even more, our Greenery S specifically isn't just a hydroponic farm. It's also a container farm. It is in a shipping container after all. We like to call this method of farming controlled environment agriculture, or CEA for short. And that just means that we're able to control every aspect of a plant's growing environment so that we're able to create a perfect growing day 365 days a year, regardless, again, of where you are in the world, no matter what weather you're experiencing. And in order to do this, our farms are actually super smart, and they're able to mimic or even improve upon the conditions that nature would have already set out for these crops to grow in traditional agriculture, for example. I can tell you, I've worked with plants my whole life. Before my role here at Freight Farms, I was a horticulturalist for 4 years. And working with them every day, it seems like time of their own to you. But at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, bare bones, plants really only need a few inputs for survival to grow efficiently, right? And I'm sure most of you learned this early on, but those inputs to grow are light, water, nutrients, CO2, and just generally the right environmental conditions. So I'm very happy to say that our farms here at Freight Farms do a great job of providing all of those things to our crops. Awesome. I see all these questions rolling in. Appreciate those. We'll be sure to get to those at the end, so keep them coming. I love that. Okay. So we've gone through the basics of what hydroponics is. We've gone through the basics of just the Greenery S overview. So now let's talk about the actual layout of the inside of the container, right? The nitty gritty. So this is what we came for at the end of the day. Inside the farm, first, when you walk in the shipping container door, you'll be greeted with our beautiful nursery station or nursery area. Here it is. So these are where our seedlings actually start their life. And then the second half of the container is our cultivation area. And that is where our crops will grow for the remainder of their lives for about 4 weeks and reach their full maturity and hopefully be ready to harvest and be enjoyed by the community and your consumers. Okay, so let's take a deeper dive into the nursery area. I think that would be pretty cool. Okay, so these seedlings actually start their life out here, like I said, and they're here for about 3 weeks. So once you start the seeding process just as a whole, you'll actually be responsible for seeding our seeds into what we like to call seedling trays. And in each tray, depending on what you get, a 288 cell tray or a 200 cell tray, it really depends on the maximum production that you're looking for. But you'll place all the grow plugs. It's like a spongy peat moss grow plug. And then you'll place the seed in each of those grow plugs. And then you'll place those trays into one of the troughs of the nursery area. And if you were to seed all of your seeds into the 288 cell trays, for example, you would have enough space for roughly 4,600 crops to grow at peak production, which is insane to think about. It still baffles me to this day, and I've been working here for almost 2 years now. So basically how it goes is, just to dive into this even more. So we have our dosing cabinet, we have a nursery water tank, and then the water will actually travel through these nursery troughs where the seedling trays will be placed. And then we have a nice work table where you'll be doing all of your farming tasks, like seeding, for example, transplanting, harvesting, packaging, even things like that. So like I said, once you've seeded your whole tray, you put them in that nursery trough where they'll have access to their own nutrient-rich water that comes on a regular schedule, thanks to a system of pumps and timers specifically designed for this Greenery S. And as you can see, or as you probably already noticed, they'll also have access to their own light as well. And what's really cool about these two troughs is that you'll be able to control them separately, depending on what you want to grow, what variety of crop you'll want to go. But again, they'll stay in here for about 3 weeks until the roots are sturdy, until the seedling has developed their first set of true leaves. And that's when you'll know that they're ready to move on and graduate from high school, as I like to also call the nursery area, into college, which is our cultivation area. So let's check that out. Okay, so 3 weeks is done in the nursery area. Now it's time to transplant into one of our plant panels in the cultivation area. So, like I said, you'll know when they're ready to transplant by those nice white roots, the first set of true leaves. That's when you'll know they're ready. But a general overview of the cultivation area as a whole, like I mentioned, you'll have these plant panels, and then those will be divided into 5 grow channels where the plants will actually be placed. But there's about 88 plant panels in total in the cultivation area, and each of those panels can hold up to 100 plants, depending on how a crop likes to be placed. We have resources on that. And this, at the end of the day, means that the cultivation area has enough space for about 8,800 plants to grow at any one given time. So lots of hyper-local fresh produce for everyone to enjoy at the end of the day. You can see that these 88 panels are also separated into 4 grow walls, as we like to call them. Here we go, and they're movable, which is pretty cool, so that there's enough airflow, air circulation. And as you can see, each wall will have its own dedicated LED light array, depending on, which crops like what in terms of light, usually red and blue in here. It helps with leaf and root development for the crop. And then if we take a look again at these panels in the grow wall, at the top, you can't really see it now, but at the top, you'll see that gray irrigation line. That is what will actually supply each grow channel of each panel with water. The water will drip down each grow channel via drip emitters. And there's actually like wicking or saturation strips between this foam. And that will allow the water to travel all the way down the panel. And then any unused water will collect in these gutters and be able to recirculate throughout the system again. That's what makes our Greenery S specifically very water efficient. We're able to recycle that water as long as we're keeping up with maintenance and water turnover. I'm getting too nitty gritty. You don't have to worry about that. So, like I said, you end up with about 8,800 plants just in the cultivation area alone. If you're at peak production, if you're using 288 cell trays, it's pretty cool to see at the end of the day. I wish we were at the stage of being almost ready to harvest these so you could see a bigger plant. But at around the 4 or 3 week mark, you should be good to go to harvest. So you may be wondering, who's going to help me with this? Like, how do I schedule everything out? How does the farm run? Things like that. The good news is, what I want to relate to you all is that our system as a whole took over 10 years to develop, and we've gone through quite a few iterations of each model to better suit our customers, to make it easier for all of you at the end of the day. But the good news I want to relay is that you do have help, and that help is called Farmhand. That is our software that we specifically designed to go along with our freight farms. This software controls everything: the pumps, the timers, the sensors, the overall environment in your freight farm. That's what's telling your farm, the software is what telling your farm how to make adjustments and when to make those adjustments to keep your farm with perfect growing conditions for all of your crops. And I just want to mention, Farmhand is super helpful. But that's not to say that the farm will do everything for you. Unfortunately, we don't have robots installed yet to do all of your general farming tasks like seeding, transplanting, harvesting, farm maintenance, things like that. But it does give our freight farmers peace of mind that they do have their own little virtual assistant that's able to control everything. It even allows you about a freight farm for a couple of days. The software even allows your farm, and that is through the use of cameras. So on our Farmhand app or just on our Farmhand web browser, your account will have dedicated cameras that will update every 3 hours, those pictures, which is pretty cool. And we also have the ability for our customers to sign up for alerts and notifications for their Farmhand account. So if anything were to go awry, if any readings were off, things like that, if you needed to add nutrients to your tank, your farm and Farmhand will alert you in a moment's notice. So you can always make adjustments as needed. Like I said, this software was literally built around the farm. So if you do decide to purchase one with us, Farmhand will be your partner in crime and your customer success specialist, I should say. Okay, awesome. Okay, I think I covered just about everything in terms of, our model of farm greenery S, an overview of hydroponics. I did a deep dive into the different sections. So I think we can move on to our second part of our tour today, which is zoning and site preparation. I'm ready to rock if you all are. And again, keep those questions coming. I love to see it. We're also providing you with resources along the way in that chat box as well to better assist you. Okay, so like I said before, I am a customer success specialist here at Freight Farms. I should by now know the ins and outs of everything our farmers need to complete before the arrival of their container. And I think it's super important that we get all of these resources and items across early on in the process so you can get your farm delivered as soon as you want, right? We don't want any holdups. So a couple of those key items that you need to take care of before your farm arrives at your site is zoning and site prep. We'll start off with at least, and then I'll dive into the next. So no matter where you are in the world, zoning or permitting of some sort may be needed for your container to be placed on your site that you have in mind, right? It really depends on your local municipality. So I always tell my customers to research that and start discussions with your city or your local municipality very early on in the process. Even if you want to start like now, for example, you wouldn't even have to purchase the farm yet to start those discussions. The earlier, the better, right? Because sometimes it can take quite a bit of time. That's really why I want to get all this information up there. So zoning laws in general, if not a lot of you know, are guidelines set up by your local municipality or city hall just to basically help urban growth and development. And also it's used to preserve the character of a given neighborhood or to ensure that a new development is compatible with existing uses and communities. In my experience, in my team's experience here at Freight Farms, We find that our customers generally have the best luck designating our freight farms as a piece of agricultural equipment and placing it in an area that is already zoned as agriculture or industrial slash commercial zone, a zone. The zones where we find are a little bit harder to work around are if you're thinking of placing the container in, say, a residential area. There seems to be a lot more rules set up for residential zones, but this is something that you will have to do and be responsible for before your container is able to get delivered to your site. So again, we strongly recommend starting this process as soon as possible. And if no permit or zoning is needed, that is also great. As long as it's confirmed, we would be good to go. And we have a bunch of different resources on this topic. When you do decide to hopefully purchase a freight farm with us, we have a platform dedicated to our customers with a bunch of helpful articles around zoning and permitting. And Amy is also going to share a zoning booklet as well with you all, even before you sign a contract with us. And if anybody has any questions on zoning and permitting, feel free to drop it right in. Awesome. Okay. Now on to my personal favorite is site preparation. So as your customer success specialists, as a customer success team, we will be responsible for relaying and assisting with checking off all the boxes in terms of what you need for site preparation for your container to be delivered. So generally speaking, there are a few components. Number one, space of a given site, pitch of the farm, foundation, and then connection to utilities such as water, electricity, internet. And I just want to pause for a second. I just want to pause and say, don't let all of this overwhelm you. You have a customer success specialist by your side helping you through all these items, and we'll get through it together. That's what our job is at the end of the day, to better assist you all. So to start us off, in terms of space, this container is 8 tons and it is about 320 square feet of space. We recommend a site that has at least 500 square feet of space. So super important to note as you start researching sites in your area. And that is because we want 5 feet of space in front of the container to be able to access the door and get in your farm and start freight farming. And then 5 feet in back of the container to be able to access the HVAC unit that we have back there that's responsible for controlling cooling and heating in the farm. And also the electrical box. So you want to have access, you want to have good airflow in the back of the farm. So 500 square feet of space for a general site is definitely recommended. Awesome. Okay. So just to give you all a few examples too, in terms of site, I've had customers, choose old agricultural land for their site and lease it out with a retired farmer. I've had so that works too. Emma was telling me the other day that she even had a customer who found a site on Craigslist. So you just never know. Do your research, really get into it. There are a bunch of other options out there for you, and we're always happy to help you out too with ideas. Okay, so site is taken care of. Awesome. Now moving on to foundation. Where on that site will your container specifically be placed? On what foundation? So again, there are multiple different options for foundation. You could do a paved lot, for example, like my customer at the school did. You could do a gravel pad. The thickness and compression is really dependent on where you are located in the world, but we'll help you out with that. You can do a concrete pad. You can do sonotubes, for example. You can even do railroad ties, helical piers. You have options depending on the cost you have available to you, right? You always have an alternative to something that costs a hefty amount. But the end goal of a foundation is, again, this is 8 tons. So we want to make sure over time that nothing is sinking on us, right? We want to make sure we have a good, hardy, safe foundation for everyone to be able to work in this freight farm. That being said, on top of foundation, we also require a 2-inch pitch in front of the farm compared to the back. So to put it more simply, the farm has to be slanted slightly upward by 2 inches in the front. Why is that? Great question. I'm glad you asked. It's because it's so our irrigation systems can flow and function properly. So that 2-inch pitch, our delivery team, the crane and trucking company can actually help you out with that upon your delivery day of your freight farm. So no need to worry about that. But you do have to have certain materials on delivery day, such as pressurized wood blocks or railroad ties to make that pitch sufficient enough for that water to flow properly throughout the whole farm and get recycled and recirculated back into the system as a whole. And again, we will always be there to help you out with other ideas. You can even, if you do decide to do a concrete pad, for example, you can even pitch the concrete pad 2 inches higher. Same goes for the gravel pad. It really depends on your given area. Okay, so we covered space, we covered pitch, we covered, what else did we cover? Foundation. We covered a lot so far. Next on the docket, and I don't want you to get overwhelmed, are utilities. So there will be a couple of utilities that will be required to run the freight farm, such as a water connection, electricity, and internet of some sort. So to start us off, water. As you know by now, this is a hydroponic growing system. It needs water. Your crops will need water. This is how they're getting their nutrients. This is how they're living full, healthy lives, right? Just like us. So there's actually 3 hose spigots in the back of your container on the outside on the bottom. One is responsible for filling and draining your tanks, and the other is responsible for draining your tanks. So you can actually hook up your farm to water when you do want to fill your tanks by a simple hose connection to a spigot you have nearby. Generally speaking, the requirement for space between the farm and the spigot you already have is about 50 feet for there to be enough water pressure to fill your tanks. So about 50 feet, you can do a hose connection. You can have your water delivered, always an option. That's what we do here at Freight Farms. We actually have designated water totes in the back of the container on our site. We get our water delivered, and then we can simply hook up a hose to that tote and fill our tanks as needed, and then drain them out the back spigot. Let's see what else. Something I want to add is that you can also, if you're in an area or location that has brutal winters like Boston, you can also get heated hoses too, to make sure that water isn't freezing and to make sure it's getting into those crops. And someone just mentioned you can even connect via well. You can do a hard plumb situation if your costs allow for it. You really have options. It just depends on your given site and the funds you have available for site preparation for your farm. And we're always happy to chat through that with you. Okay. One thing I wouldn't recommend is manually filling your tanks, because one tank is over 100 gallons and the other tank is 88 gallons. So it can be quite a lot. I don't think you want to do that to yourselves. So definitely good to have some sort of water connection. Great. On to the next one. Electricity will be needed. The farm comes standard with 240 V 150 amp connection for our electric. That's a single phase. If you do require 3-phase connection, we would also be able to help you out in terms of the supplies you'll need for that and the instructions on how to make that connection. But either way, you are going to need a certified electrician in your area to help you, or to even make the connection of the freight farm to that electricity. So when you do start your onboarding process with you, we do have a bunch of resources available for our customers in terms of electrical specs, like I said, the 3-phase conversion if needed, things like that. We have all of those resources to pass your way if needed. Lastly, the last thing I want to say about electric is that I've had some customers install solar panels. Really up to you if you want to install them on your farm. Just generally speaking, with how much surface area the container has, if you did want to install solar panels, it's really important for you to go through all of the different factors relating to solar panels. One being the cost of what it will be to hire a person for labor to install them, the cost of external batteries, and the fact that just due to the amount of surface area, there's only enough room for solar panels to cover about 15 to 20% of your farm's overall electricity. So again, totally up to you and your situation. If you did want to use that as supplemental energy, you always could. Okay, great. Last on the docket is internet. So you will need internet to be able to control your farm software in your farm. That is how the farm runs. You'll need an internet of some sort. Just generally speaking, in our experience, in the customer success team's experience, we find that the most success we have in terms of internet connection is a hardwire connection. But that's not to say that you don't have other options. I recently found out that, purchasing your own dedicated hotspot for the farm is also super reliable. So that's another option. You can have your own dedicated Wi-Fi if you're close to an existing building. You could maybe do a Wi-Fi booster depending on if the signal is good or not. But end goal is to have a good, solid, reliable internet connection of some sort. Again, we would be happy to help you out with that. Great. Awesome. I think I pretty much covered everything. So Emma, I think we're ready for questions, but I hope everyone comes out of this with a little bit more insight, at least. I know it is sort of quick, but a little bit more insight as to what in the heck in the world is going on in one of these farms. And again, I see a bunch of questions roll through, so I'm happy to help Emma answer those.
Yeah, Vanessa, that was great. Thank you so much for all that useful information. It was so good to hear about just ideas of placing your farm, what you need for your site, and then just going over the product in general and our farmhand software. So we got a lot of great questions in, so we'll go through those. And if you all have more questions, again, feel free to put them in the Q&A section, and we'll either answer them live or get you the answer after the event. So just diving into some of the questions that people have asked so far, can you go over the R28 value a little bit and just mention like the minimum and maximum temperatures that is allowed with our farm to be able to grow 365 days a year?
Yep. Give me 1 second. I have the specifics on that.
And while she gets the answer, so to start answering the question, that R28 value, so we have farmers in the deserts of Kuwait, up in Alaska, all across the world. We're in over 41 countries already. So these farms really are able to exist in any climate.
I just want to get the specific specifications of our unit of our HVAC. So give me 1 second. So the unit for HVAC that we currently have installed is rated for an ambient temperature of -30 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, to give you more context into that.
Yeah, thanks, Vanessa. And so what is usually the temperature inside of the farm?
It really depends. Right now we're looking at a temp of about 70 with 65% humidity. Here's proof.
Yeah.
But it really depends. So the container will have one temperature as a whole, which will be controlled and relayed to our farmhand software by an environmental or climate module in the back. And you'll actually be responsible as freight farmers for, keeping up with the calibration of that,
Mhm.
make sure that the farm is reading the temperature accurately.
Perfect. And for the warranty, what warranty does Freight Farms offer on our farms?
Great question. Thank you for touching upon that, whoever asked that. So the farm comes standard with a 1 year limited parts warranty upon the day of your delivery of your freight farm, right? So with anything damaged during transit, any parts, any hardware, you'll be responsible for completing a post-delivery diagnostics checklist to ensure that all hardware is working properly. And if you find that a piece of hardware isn't, or a certain component isn't functioning properly, we would ask you to file it in that checklist, and then we would be happy to cover parts associated with that. And if you were able to, get connected to all utilities and submit that post-delivery diagnostics checklist as soon as possible within 30 days, we would actually cover the labor costs associated with anything damaged in the farm's transit as well. So
Perfect.
again, yeah, 1 year limited parts warranty from the delivery day.
Awesome. And after that first year, we do recommend budgeting about 2,500 per year, which includes any parts as well as the labor needed to replace those parts. If you haven't taken a look already, we have a really great business planning Excel model. So you'll see that cost baked into that Excel model as well. So you can really understand all of your operational costs of running a freight farm. And if you don't have that Excel model, feel free to send your account executive an email and they'll be able to pass it along. So, more general question, when
Yeah,
our farmers are actually looking to get started with a freight farm, maybe they don't have any farming experience at all, they want to just totally enter a new career, or maybe they have
yeah.
years of farming experience. How can they start one and what guidance are they going to get?
Of course. Great question again. So I just want to say, just so you can all like not worry. So most of my customers, for example, have no experience farming, have no experience growing a plant, right? And I think that's why my team, not to brag about my team, but is so important because we're able to guide you through all of those crucial onboarding steps and get you prepped and ready to go to reach that first harvest on your own, right? We also have, just in general here at Freight Farms, we also have a variety of different trainings and resources available to our customers. We have an in-person farm camp training, a 2-day intensive classroom and in-farm based learning sessions here with our team. And then we also have online self-paced classes as well to help get you prepped for freight farming as well, called our Farmhand Academy.
That's great. And we got a great question in. So, if you're looking to farm 6 to 9 months out of the year, what support would Freight Farms provide for those looking to safely shut down their farm? So when they revamp the farm in a few months
Yep.
from then, things are ready to go.
Great question again. I love it. Everyone is super engaged. So this is a great point because we see this a lot with schools, especially using the freight farm as part of a course curriculum, things like that. They obviously have to ramp down the farm for summer months. So we actually have a whole farmhand knowledge base article on the instructions surrounding how to safely ramp down your farm, including, what components to disconnect, what key items in the farm you'll be responsible for doing a deep clean of before you leave, things like that. So we have all those instructions handy for our customers.
That's great. And then diving in a little further, so what do we often tell our farmers for like the overall life expectancy of one of our container farms?
You know what, Emma? You might have a better idea than this than me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when we're thinking of the farm in general, it is a brand new shipping container that's made custom for freight farms. So the shipping container in general has a life expectancy of about 50 plus years. And then the individual components inside of the farm will have different life expectancies. So things like your pumps that are running 24/7, those are things that you can find like at your local hardware store and easily replace. Again, because they are running frequently. And then the bigger items like your LED boards or the HVAC system, the LED boards in general have a life expectancy of 9.1 years based on running the lights for about 18 hours per day. At that 9.1 year mark, they're still going to work. However, the intensity will just start to slightly diminish. So you would have the option of replacing the LED board or one or two LED boards, whatever works for you, or you can just continue to operate status quo. The other thing is the HVAC system, which has a life expectancy of about 12 years. At that point, the some of our HVACs are still working great, or you could look into replacing the HVAC system to a brand new HVAC in general.
And just going off of all of those details you just shared, Emma, just through my team's own experience, where we see the most success and you know the longest duration in terms of lifespan for our containers is keeping up with maintenance. So you'll be responsible as a freight farmer for conducting daily, weekly, and monthly maintenance tasks. And that's because these different components and pieces of hardware are running constantly. They're really putting in the work. So it's super important that we also, give back to them and take care of them. And like anything else, if you take care of it well, it will last longer for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Our best farmers are those who keep a really well-maintained farm. And since we do only have a few minutes left of the tour, I want to dive into some more of those specific zoning questions. So what are some of the challenges that people face in their towns, cities when it comes to zoning? And what are some of those zoning classifications that seem to be
Yeah.
the most successful for our farmers?
Yeah. So just from my own experience, like specifically, I'm finding that a lot of my customers sometimes have a hard time with the city. Number one, never seeing anything like a freight farm before. And so they don't really know how to go about it, how to handle it. And number two, they want the freight farm to really blend in with surrounding structures. So I have a customer who's going through onboarding whose small town actually wants her to put wood paneling on the outside of her farm to make it look more like a I don't know, a building or a storefront. But just generally speaking, we see the best success with um, designating our freight farms as a piece of agricultural equipment if you're able to place it in an agricultural zone or an industrial or commercial zone. Like I was saying before, residential zones seem to be the most tricky for sure. A lot more guidelines in place.
Yeah, yeah. And when we're thinking about placing the farms in Europe, so we do, like I said, we do have farms in over 41 countries across the world. So all zoning is different from town to town, state to state, country to country, but we certainly will be there to provide support depending on where you're placing the farm in Europe or anywhere across the world. And we can follow up as well with our zoning guide, just with tips that will help you further the conversation with those in your area. So I think we have time for about one more question. Looking at some of the ones that are still in the chat, can you just briefly talk about like the alerts and notifications that farmhand will tell their farmers if anything was going on inside of the farm?
Yeah, great question. So, our software team is very diligent about keeping all of these up to dates for our customers. So, when you do officially become a freight farmer, hopefully soon, through your farmhand account, we'll have a list of already like pre-installed alerts and notifications, such as when your water levels get too low, the sensor will tell farmhand that it's time to fill your tanks. Same goes for the nutrient tanks as well. And you can get alerts and notifications via email, text, whichever you sign up for. Another fun fact is that you can also make custom alerts and notifications. So for things more specific to your farm, or general operations as well. So you have
Yeah.
options.
Perfect. Well, Vanessa, I really appreciate your time today. This was super helpful, just going over the farm and all of the specifics about zoning. So if we didn't answer your question live, we'll be sure to let your account executive know and they'll get the answers to you. If you have any other questions, just feel free to contact your account executive directly by giving them a call or sending them an email. My whole team is here to assist you in your research and your business planning, whether you're looking to start a for-profit, a not-for-profit, or bring it to school, whether it's K through 12 or higher education. So we really appreciate you all taking the time to speak with us today. And we hope that you reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help you in the future.
Thank you so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your days and nights.
Bye.